Iowa's News Now Sports brings you black and gold glory. Your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks.
I'm just happy to be 500 career-wise, not against Western. Look, I don't know if you guys can pile on there, but that hasn't exactly been a great series for me to be involved. So,
finally, the hurdle of 2000 and 2007 has been cleared. Iowa and Kirk Ferentz 2-2 against those pesky Broncos, courtesy of 100 points in those last two victories over WMU. Welcome to our live Sunday edition of Eye on the Hawks, recapping that 41-10 Western Michigan defeat to the Iowa Hawkeyes, moving to 3-0. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here. A lot to get through in a game that gave us a lot of things that people were waiting for, but still just felt a little wonky. You get a rain delay in there because there's lightning just within the halo, so to speak. A lot of fun stuff. A lot of those fun reminders of why this sport is so great, of just cool, joyous moments. Your initial reactions to the win and some of those really cool moments.
I've made the executive decision that this is now going to be an Iowa field hockey podcast. I only want to talk about Deontay Vines and Esme Gibson from now on, so I hope that our listeners should.
Can I interject? Iowa soccer, women's soccer, starts Big Ten play today. I think we need to start with that.
It's a fun time to be a Hawkeye.
They're nationally ranked too, so shout out to the women's soccer team.
Are they ranked now?
Yep.
What are they?
23rd, I think.
Oh, good for them.
Doing great.
Yeah, they're undefeated, I think.
Super fun, but we will start with the football side of things.
I will now address my football opinions now that I've gotten my field hockey opinions out of the way. I think that it was very fun to have a Hawkeye game this year where, the first two games, it's almost like starts great, ends a little bit more slowly, and the fans leave kind of like, oh boy. But I feel like it was the total opposite, where it was like they started slow and the fans were like, what is going on? And then they end well and everybody leaves the stadium with like way better vibes. My biggest takeaway was that last week I said I would really like to see what this team has to do when they face adversity, when they have to play from behind. And they got exactly that yesterday. I did not think that test was going to come against Western Michigan, but it came and they got it, and they had to play from adversity, and they did well with it.
First time they trailed all season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we saw Western start fast against Syracuse and then give up 48 unanswered. So, I mean, that's what the Broncos do.
Yeah.
They talked about they were going to blitz a lot, 70% of the time. Cade gets sacked 4 times, really was running around. So we saw a few things from Western.
Gave up 34 unanswered, I think, yesterday against Iowa, because they were up 10-7 and then lost 41-10. So, yeah, 34.
34, yeah. But a ton of fun there. But again, first time we've really seen Iowa kind of get popped in the mouth a little bit, but then the response, huge. Cade McNamara finding Deontay Vines, who Cade could not believe that is Deontay's first career touchdown, but we'll get into that more too. An awesome moment for a guy who's been banged up. And then, boy, we thought it was going to be all about jazz on Saturday, but we still found some boogie. LaShawn Williams, what a day for him, 145 yards on the ground. And then Ontario Thompson, another guy we're going to get more in-depth about his story, the pride of Hempstead, goes to Iowa Western, gets his grades right, and what a moment for him with the safety. And then Kamari Moulton, true freshman. We don't hear from them in the media a whole lot. He had a lot to say and good reason, too. That's his first career touchdown. And then what a moment here. Cedar Rapids, stand up. Max White, 5th, maybe 6th on the depth chart at running back, and what a moment they're going to be talking about. First Cedar Rapids kid to have a touchdown for Iowa since another Kennedy kid, Sean Byer in 2020. Before that, I believe it was Keenan Davis. Paki O'Mara is probably the last Cedar Rapids running back they've had. Of course, Andre Dawson was a walk-on, was a great analyst for the Cyhawk version of Eye on the Hawks. Alan Reisner, a Marion kid, but just, those Metro kids, just really cool moments, and great to see the offense go out, but it was really, again, that rushing attack, not just LaShawn, but Kamari getting in there. TJ Washington had a couple carries. Great to see him out there. Jazz, it sounded like maybe a little banged up there in the second half, but again, he was the star last week against Iowa State. He came in, had some good reps before Boogie went in, and really made it a wonderland out there. But from the offensive line to Kirk to LaShawn, who had some great sound bites as well, everybody super happy about the domination that we saw from that running attack. Let me get the stats real quick before we go to that bite. I should have planned better. 43 rushes for 254 yards, and again, that includes the 4 Cade McNamara sacks. We'll talk about his day in a little bit, but a huge day for them on the ground, one that it really feels like they needed.
I wonder, this is almost an impossible research task to do, but to look at the last time the Hawkeyes had 3 different players score their first career touchdowns in the same game. I mean, it's a fun little nugget for all those guys, for Max and for Deontay and for Moulton to get their touchdowns in that first game.
It was a day of first. You throw in Thompson's safety, too, and what a cool first moment that was for him. But again, the run game, people pretty happy about what they saw in the trenches.
Offensively, we got to go with the running game, so that felt good, and it opened up a couple other things late in the game. So, it was really exciting. Once we got, we were like 200, and then we're going to 250. Is that where we stopped? I think somewhere around there. 51. Yeah, 51, something like that. Next is 300. So
it's next man up. But we got a lot of backs in the room, as y'all can see. I feel like we got a real stable. We stacked, and we got a lot of talent. And I feel like we all know next man up, and anything can happen at any moment. So when we get the opportunity, we all got to take advantage. The O-line, I can't take credit for that. The O-line, they did I'm not going to say the word, but they did a great job. Any of y'all could have ran through them holes, so I ain't going to take credit to that. So, yeah.
One thing about this year, it's a little bit more realistic to think that we can maybe start playing the way we like to play or have liked to play in the past. The last 2 years, we've had our challenges up front. We're not there yet, but we're certainly a more mature group just overall, physically but also mentally up front. Then I'm anxious to see the film. So, yeah, execution must be a little bit better today.
I think when we were, at least from my perspective, when we were talking about the offense is really close, a step away, I think we were more about the passing attack, just the balls thrown a little too far, a little too short. Shame on us for not thinking the rushing attack is maybe one block away from really going off. Again, 8 different ball carries, if you include Cade, had the 4 sacks, had a nice little scramble. We'll talk about his health and his situation a little bit. But, boy, yeah, that's the game that apparently they were on the precipice of going off, just in a way maybe we weren't fully expecting.
Yeah, it's true. And not to mention just the fact they had 8 ball carriers, but they did it without the guy who I thought was going to be the offensive MVP this year. Caleb Johnson wasn't even playing in that game.
And I literally, before the 2-hour report came out of who's in, who's out, I was going to say, hey, we've talked all about Jazz. Caleb Johnson's still on this team. Wait for him to go off. And then, he's out, and he has been out basically since the end of the Iowa State game, it sounds like. So it sounds like it'll be a day-to-day, week-to-week thing for him, but just such an awesome moment. Mike, as always, if you're watching on YouTube, we've got highlights all over the place, and if you're listening to this later, go to YouTube and watch all the highlights we've got. But Mike's got a great photo gallery up on iowasnewsnow.com. I've told you this in private, too. It's so cool to see your camera eye, your lens eye really develop. Mm-hmm. You've got some awesome shots, but you had a great view of so many of these rushes, too, and just what a fun day and what this offense really feels like they needed. It's Iowa. You got to ground and pound sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And can you tell the audience what I said on the drive down? Do you remember? About the rushing attack?
You said something.
I said, I think it might be the LaShawn Williams game.
You did, yeah. You
really?
So, yeah, I was just throwing it out there. I wasn't really making
that.
Again,
but Iowa's got this wealth of running backs.
I am impressed with that hot take that you had before the game, just because I'd been a little bit underwhelmed by LaShawn over the first couple of games. He hadn't done much compared to his counterparts in Caleb and
he had a couple drops the first 2 games. One of them first week could have been for a touchdown. But that screenplay, we'll hear from him later on that screenplay because the blocking was perfect, especially from the receivers down the field. But great play from him though to get all those yards.
He had a long touchdown run in the fall scrimmage on Kids Day. Sean Williams been around a while, and always every once in a while seems to have that reminder of hey, Ford's still here and he's doing his thing.
It's interesting. Since the start of this podcast, we've had different conversations about the deepest part of the Iowa lineup. We've talked a lot about the secondary being super deep. John Steppe was in talking about how deep the defensive line is. The linebackers we've touched on. Tight end room, obviously deep. I think we know that. We hadn't ever hardly mentioned the running back room, and it's possible that it was just a product of playing Western Michigan, a lower tier MAC squad possibly. But still, boy, that running back room starts to look awfully deep and awfully dangerous if somebody goes down.
And maybe part of it is that they blitz 70% of the time. Those guys are running past you, and you're able to just slip by and pass them like ships.
I don't have the numbers on me, but I think a couple beat writers brought it up previously. I remember seeing it a lot, though. Do you guys think they're running more counters and more traps than they generally do?
There's a little more swinging to one side and the other.
I see a lot of holding guards and pulling tackles.
Used to be a lot of power, but yeah, you're seeing a little more. Colby's swinging out a little more from the left to the right as well. Whatever they're doing, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I also got a little bit of Hawkeye trivia if you guys want to go with running back.
We haven't had trivia in a while.
This is courtesy of Matt Benson. I didn't look this
Benson,
up. So Kamari Moulton scored 2 touchdowns on his debut. He's the first Hawkeye running back to score their opening 2 touchdowns in the same game since.
I saw this.
Oh, you did?
It's Jewel Hampton, right?
Yeah, 2008 season opener.
Dude, Jewel was a dude. Ended up transferring to Southern Illinois and finished off. But boy, and that was a 3-headed running attack. I think going into 2009, it was him, Adam Robinson, and Brandon Wager, who we've mentioned a couple of times in the pod. That was a group that you're like, oh boy, they're going to cook a little bit. And I think Jewel got hurt in 2009, something like that. But I remember that he had a big debut in 2008. Was that against Maine? Did they open?
Yep, Maine. The Maine Black Bears.
How do I remember this stuff and I can't?
Well, that was my freshman year, so that's why I remember it. That was my first game as a student. So I think I went there early and got there one of the first 3 rows. So
they need
good times.
more Maine matchups. Bring back Kurt's initial coaching stop. Bring them over here.
Keep bringing it in.
Support the Maine.
All right. Well, we talked about the running attack, but again, a super cool first and a day of first for the passing game. Deontay Vines. We have talked about how much this dude has been through injury-wise and just been fighting to not just get on the field, but just be healthy for practice or anything else. First career touchdown for him, and what a great throw it was from Cade as well. I don't know if you want to throw that video up again, Mike. I threw like 20 different videos at Mike, and hopefully some of them.
You want to hear from Cade first? I got that pulled up.
We can
we can come out and watch the video.
We'll do that. So again, Cade apparently just assumed if this guy's been in the program this long, he's got to have a tutty or two. Bit of a revelation after he crossed the goal line.
I thought he was joking when he told me it was his first touchdown. I was like, there's no way, dude, you're joking. He's like, no, yeah, I've played 8 games. That's my first touchdown. I was like, dude, that's insane. Like, I'm so happy for you. Like, he scores touchdowns in practice all the time. So, for him to, finally get one and, I owe him one after last week. So for, him to find the end zone, that was awesome.
Is that better than dinner then? Buying him dinner?
It's definitely better than buying him dinner, but I still got to buy him dinner.
Yeah, that was an Iowa State throw. So here's the moment again. And a bit of an insight into Cade McNamara and who he is. He's more worried about the people he's playing with rather than like their numbers and their statistical history. I mean, he's just happy to see Deontay healthy and doing his thing in practice and not worrying about where he is in the record books. But man, that's, again, just an awesome, awesome moment. And we didn't get to talk to Deontay afterwards in the post game, but he's usually there on Tuesday media availability, and I bet he'll just be beaming if he's there again.
Yeah, he's a fun guy to talk to. Always has something interesting to say. He's a guy who's just very open and congenial with the media. And yeah, going from 2 games ago, the season opener, after we've been talking him up, had 0 catches against Utah State. 1 catch last week against Iowa State. Now gets that first touchdown this week.
And again, he's so proud of where he's from. One of the 203 boys, him and Nico Raggiani. I didn't realize this against Utah State until I saw the pregame introductions on Saturday. Both of them mentioned the 203 in their Jumbotron intros. So they're so proud of where they are, and I know the 203 is standing up for Deontay. After that, speaking of him, when he's not catching passes and first career touchdowns, apparently he is downfield blocking like nobody's business. He was the one who really helped spring LaShawn's screen touchdown again, and LaShawn did not ignore that fact and had some great analysis on what he saw when he caught that screen from Cade and looked ahead downfield.
So I was looking, I seen a backer sitting right there. I was gonna bluff him because he was coming, but he ran into the lineman, so he helped me. I was like, all right, cool. So I caught the ball. He came through a nice little lob pass to me. I caught it, and I looked down the field. I was already pacing a little bit. I'm gonna cut back. I'm gonna score there. But then I'm looking, I see Vines down there, Deontay Vines. I gotta shout out to him. Whatever he was doing to that corner wasn't nice. He was literally killing that man over there. So at the end of the day, I gotta give props to Vines, and I was just like, it was just that. It was easy. It was money.
I don't think Deontay was committing any sort of homicide. We should just probably clarify that. But yeah, whatever he did. Again, this is Iowa football. Your receivers are gonna. You saw him all the way down to the goal line. He blocked him 20 yards downfield. So that's.
It's hard to tell on our shots because we were on the field.
Sure.
But on the replay, the first thing I noticed, I think I was sitting next to Owen at this time. I was like, dang, Deontay's blocking right when he catches the ball. Deontay's at the goal line blocking, and he holds the block for 5 seconds.
Yeah, I had a nice shot of it just because it was coming right towards me, but it really was kind of the quintessential Iowa play that could be summed up so well, where it's just a swing pass out to a running back. Logan Jones was just right next to him, not even hardly needing to make a block, but just like kind of providing that separation, that space that he needed to the side of him. And then you've got Deontay, just a receiver at the goal line, just blocking somebody up, waiting for him to kind of come up behind him. And that's the only reason he scored the touchdown, was because Deontay had that guy blocked at the goal line.
It's a reminder of, and that's a great play call by Brian Ferentz, by the way. We'll talk about numbers and contracts or whatever later. But it shows that you can get a great play calling, but if you don't execute it, all 11 guys doing their job, it's not going to pan out. When all 11 hit it, you're going to get a really cool play and a really cool moment for Boogie on a big day for him. Let's talk a little bit more about Cade. Obviously, kind of the crown jewel of the recruiting class, so to speak, coming into 2023. 9 of 19 yesterday, 103, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now, this one, don't blame him. Damari Roberson, that's just having stickum on your hands, apparently. That's an incredible play there. And then end of the first half, looking for Seth, and Henry Lovely is an all-mat corner, and that's just a great play. And then sacks. Again, we talked about the pass protection. This is as healthy. We talked about this on Wednesday, too. Cade said it's as good as he's felt since going down on Kids Day. Now he's got a little more health. He saw him moving around a little bit more. I'm strangely encouraged. I would argue that maybe in terms of just playing football, and that's kind of vague. Like, this might have been his best football game of, like, moving around. Because he's obviously looking downfield and looking to make plays, and I think he's excited about, and Kirk alluded to this too, of just like, listen, he hasn't played a lot in a while, and he's getting these opportunities now, and he's kind of feeling himself out in terms of what he can do and where he can look and where he can throw, and was dealing with a lot of pressure. We talked about that on Tuesday and Wednesday as well. I feel like he was finding his footing, and this is, I suppose, the opportunity to do it. I do have, let me pull out the phone now because I got more stats. So I wanted to compare him 3 games into his Hawkeye tenure compared to what we saw from Spencer 3 games in. Not comparing them as people, or these are just the numbers. I'll get into why I don't really care about numbers, even though I'm looking at numbers here later in the show. So 3 games into 2022, Iowa's quarterback play was 37 of 77, 48% completion percentage for 376 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. That's an average of 4.88 yards per attempt. That's not great. Cade is 38 of 71 for 54% for 417 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, yards per attempt at 5.87. So just about 1 yard full more per attempt. Now, that completion percentage and yards per attempt for Cade are about where we saw in 2022 for the entire year between Spencer, Alex, and Joey. That was a big thing we talked about coming in with, Cade, hey, he's going to get his completion percentage up. He's going to, have probably more yards per attempt just based on what we had seen during his time at Michigan. We haven't seen that, but strangely, even though those numbers aren't where we want, doesn't it feel like Iowa's passing attack is just better? Just whether it's eyeball test or the fact that there's 4 passing touchdowns through 3 games. We saw 7 in 13 games last year. It's just, things look different. They look better, even though the numbers aren't eye-popping.
No, just naturally, he seems more capable. You just feel more comfortable. Like, all right, even if there's a time where things aren't going well, even if Cade throws a couple of picks, I did not feel that despair. It's not like people were booing him or people were really getting down on him, because I think that everybody for certain knew, like, dang, those 2 interceptions were incredible catches by those defensive backs that got him.
Yeah.
There's almost, not to say, every quarterback could do better and not throw that pass, but those are not entirely on Spencer, or not on Cade to have thrown those just because they were great catches.
By the way, it was cool to see Spencer out there. Obviously, he's, kind of a GA assistant type role. He was out there throwing some warm-ups. The shoulder, he's not going to go throw pads on or anything this year, but it was, again, a great Hawkeye. This is where you put stats aside. Just a great dude, and it's great to see him at least healthy and be able to even just play catch out there compared to where he was in November.
I just want to touch briefly on one of my favorite plays of the day that Cade did, and goes largely unnoticed in the grand scheme of things. It was in the first quarter, maybe on the first or second drive. He had a scramble, and he scrambled and gained 10 yards or something. And I think he'd, easily gotten the first down. It was, a short yardage situation. But at the very end of the play, right before he runs out of bounds, he reaches the ball out to get 1 extra yard on there. And that's something that I see very few quarterbacks do, or any players do. And I've always wondered, why don't more people do that? You see that at the goal line when they try to reach over the pylon, but he did not need one more yard for a first down, but that's one extra yard closer down the field that he's able to get the team. That's just like a very heads-up, smart play by a quarterback like him.
I think I've seen it more and more, but yeah, it is still, you're just like, why doesn't it happen on every single play where they're running out of bounds? Yeah, it'd help out a little bit, but again, I don't know if it's just because Cade is getting his mobility back or just some of the throws he makes. Again, that throw to Deontay where he's kind of, his arm's almost to like 45 degree and he just zips it in. It looks better. The numbers are a little better, and I think as he gets more healthy, he'll be getting better as well.
The 4 sacks are a bit of a concern, certainly. I mean, I don't know if that was, they knew that those guys were going to be coming hard, as we alluded to earlier in the week, but so I don't know if 4 sacks would be expected, but they maybe knew that there was going to be a lot more pressure than they are normally going to face. And they even the 4 sacks could be a little bit like deceptive, because I think everybody knows that really it was 3 sacks. I mean, that first sack where he went down, he did get the ball off in time, but they aren't able to review that play, and so they couldn't, just wipe that sack off the board.
Yeah, it definitely is concerning, especially when you got Penn State, who's got some better pass rushers than you'd imagine Western Michigan has coming along, and then the Big Ten season starting. But, I haven't been able to rewatch the game yet, but I wonder if the pressure was the reason for that. And me and Mitch were talking on the way back that I think kind of during those sacks, Cade was holding on to the ball. So I don't think it's necessarily 100% on the offensive line on every single sack. He was trying to make a play, and he kind of alluded to the fact that, or I think Kirk did, that he was trying to do a little too much on certain plays. But I do agree that the passing game looks a lot better than last year, even if the stats are the same. There's just throwing to receivers. There's little things. I think he's throwing the ball way more, so the completion percentage probably goes down on that.
He has less. He has 6 less attempts compared to this time.
Oh, really?
I think it's just the types of throws. I think
downfield attempts.
The fact that he's just moving in the pocket. Again, like,
we haven't seen a 3rd and 4 ball going 3 yards, so he likes to go downfield, and that's the completion percentage isn't going to be as high when you're that kind of quarterback.
I think when you combined Western blitzing a bunch with a dude who I think was looking, for the first time, able to move this season, or at least as good as he has in about a month, was looking for opportunities. I think that lent itself again to your point of 4 sacks, of him holding on the ball, looking for opportunities, and then having to take. And maybe he knew they were going to rush for 280 yards, and just like, I can afford this. This is fine. Back to the rushing attack again, though, because again, one of the best moments we'll have all season, and on a day full of awesome moments. Max White from Cedar Rapids Kennedy. You followed him around after the game and saw just the outpouring of just joy. Dude's 5th or 6th on the depth chart, was a stud at Kennedy, has bided his time, has been a great scout team dude for the Hawkeyes. Gets in yesterday for his first career score. Kind of walk us through what you put together here, because this has been blowing up on Twitter, deservedly so.
Yeah. I mean, I only know the Whites peripherally. I didn't cover Max in high school. I wasn't here yet, but, I've talked to Brian just a little bit, and I've covered Kennedy some. And so when he scored that touchdown, I'm like, oh, hey, like, good for him. That's cool. I just knew he was kind of a bench guy that's not going to see the field a lot. So I'm like, oh, that's neat. But it was only after the fact when I saw, like, just the celebration that happened in the end zone, just, like, carried over to the sideline, and everybody's still celebrating, and Cooper's going up to him and like, you did it, saying other swear words that, we can't repeat on a podcast that maybe Nico Ragaini could repeat in person. But but just like the celebration lasted from that point to like very end of the game, and then through as they were swarming off the field, everybody was rallying around Max and celebrating him.
It was the perfect way to end that. I know there's been talk about like, oh, why are you scoring late in the game? We'll have a shot about that as well, but like, why not?
Yeah.
Like that's when you take the stats out. Here's a moment for a kid who busts his tail and deserves a bit of shine.
Arguably the loudest roar in Kinnick was that last touchdown.
Such a cool moment.
The only thing that I wish I would have gotten, because I know that I saw Kennedy football tweeted earlier in the day that his younger brother, Calvin White, was there on the sideline as like a recruiting visit.
Oh, cool.
That day. And so I'm sure that Brian was in the building, his dad, who's a Kennedy coach. And so I wish that I would have been there when Max comes out and sees.
I heard you say, "Where's Brian? Where's Brian?"
Like I wanted to see that interaction, because I'm sure that was a beautiful moment, where Brian had to be so emotional seeing that. But it's so, as we say, like Brett McMurphy, I think, had a tweet early in the day. Not that I hold Brett's a great reporter, and so he wouldn't have known the backstory, but he was like, "Oh, geez, that's so funny. They're just running up the score so they can help Brian's contract." And, you just don't know the backstory behind, like, no, they're like, wanting to get this kid Max a touchdown, get him on the field, because there's so many kids like this out there who, he comes to Iowa. He knows he's not going to be an NFL player one day. I mean, he's just not going to be seeing the field a ton. He's not going to be a starter. But, like, he comes to Iowa because he loves the Hawkeyes and he wants to be here. And so to see a kid like that who comes here just for the sake of wanting to wear the black and gold, to see him get a touchdown in his career, I mean, that's beautiful. That's, like, one of the best on-field moments that we're going to see all year.
It's kind of what it's all about, isn't it? Here's Owen's recap of Max's big day and the joy that exuded from there.
Max is the guy who walked on here, had chances to go other places and receive aid, but came here. He works extremely hard in practice and just is playing on special teams, doing a really good job right now. So the guys are really happy for, I know it's got a little cheer from the crowd when that happened. The guys that don't get to play a lot, it's a lot easier if you're out there playing, but the guys that are doing all that work, to see them get rewarded is a pretty cool thing.
I was just telling him how proud I am of him. He's my roommate. He's a guy who comes in every single day and just works his tail off, no matter the circumstance. He's a guy on scout team who gives us a great look week in and week out. So I was just really proud of him.
Max is a workhorse. I mean, that dude, he's got his six-pack is about as sharp as it could be. He's straight military. He shaves his head. He's a hoo-ah all around. He hangs around Coop, so he's around greatness a lot of the time. But, he's not exactly 1 or 2 on the depth chart. But for him to get in the end zone just means a lot for this team. He's been working for this his whole life. And just to see that pay off and get that moment for him was awesome for the twos and everybody. 4th and 1, we're going for it. We're not kicking a field goal.
He's just one of those guys in the locker room that he works so hard. And, whether he's on scout team or whether he's running in with the ones today, he is just a truly team-first guy. And everyone notices his effort, his energy during conditioning. He's out there, trying to have positive energy and get everyone to continue working hard. And he's just such a team guy. So for him to have some individual success, I think the entire team embraced that, and we're just extremely excited for him.
I love that moment at the end too, the fact that it's this walk-on 6-stringer and Caleb Brown, who's such a heralded recruit, and he got his first career touch yesterday as well on a reverse, which was cool to see. But just like the dichotomy of how you enter a program, your expectations in college. Caleb, from the moment he committed, has just been like, okay, this kid could do everything. He's got a long road. He's still learning how to be a wideout, but we've seen the flash. And here's a kid who just wants to play for this team that he probably grew up rooting for. Mm-hmm. And, what a beautiful moment that is. And, again, the shrug, I'm guessing he was looking up at his folks or somebody he knew and just I'm guessing he didn't wake up Saturday morning thinking, I'm going to score a touchdown.
Yeah. The way that the way I presented it in my tweet was that, I've known Cooper for a while. I covered him when I lived in my former market, and so he was a sophomore in high school when I first kind of started noticing him and doing interviews with him. And he's always been so, soft-spoken and just very, quiet,
so quiet,
and reserved, and he just does not get excited or excitable about anything. But when I saw him on the sideline, shaking his helmet and getting up in his face, I'm like, I've never seen Cooper as excited as he was yesterday when he saw his roommate and one of his best buddies, Max, score a touchdown. Something that, who knows how many more carries Max White is going to get this year, but that's a moment that kid's going to remember, for the rest of his life.
It's cool to see the human side of this. When you're a fan, a lot of times you just see the helmet, the jersey, mm-hmm. but when when you get to listen to the players and stuff, you get to see the emotions. And I didn't even know they were roommates before today. I don't know if you guys did, but just shed some light on who they are as people.
I knew they were good friends because Kennedy's first game of the year was against Dowling on a Saturday before the football
That's right,
season.
they were there.
And so Max, of course, is on the sideline because his dad's the coach and Kennedy grad, but he brought Cooper Jean with him and Nick Jackson and...
Was Joe there?
Yeah, I think Joe Evans was the other guy that was there.
Again, on Tuesday talking to Joe and Jay about Ethan Herkett, going back to him and, just having a huge moment in the Cyhawk game, another Cedar Rapids kid.
True.
Just watching them be so excited for each other. Again, like, you put on the helmets, you throw numbers on their back, and you throw out stat sheets, and people, it's really easy to diminish people to just their numerical achievement. They're human beings, they're kids still, 18 to 22, 23. Western had a kid who's in college for 8 years, so maybe closer to like 24, 25. But like, it's just fun to see people. Kirk always draws the parallel. How do you win 201 games now? You surround yourself with good people, and maybe it's cliche, and I'm from Iowa, and I'm an Iowa grad, but you surround yourself with good people who want to do good things for other people, to see cool moments. You get moments like that they don't show up on stat sheets or record books, but that's, again, cliche, hallmarky. It's kind of what it's all about, folks, making memories. Pretty neat. How do I transition? Oh, yeah, the contract thing, the points. So anyways, that last touchdown made 41 points for Iowa, which means the ticker, 28.3 points per game through 3. All is well. There were some questions, again, you alluded to the McMurphy tweet of just piling on and get out of here.
That's exactly what I thought when it happened. I didn't actually, so I let me rephrase that. I didn't think that they were running up the score for the contract. I said, this is what people are going to think.
Sure.
Because the twos are in, you're getting some people some reps that don't normally get it. Max gets a touchdown. But I'm like, oh, people are just going to see they ran the ball. A lot of times Kirk will just need.
Did against Utah State.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I was so stunned. I could not believe that they were actually taking a shot at the end zone, letting Deacon throw it and going for it. I mean, again, Utah State, they could have done the exact same thing, and they chose not to. They just let Deacon kneel it out. But this one, they were like, all right, let's let these guys go for it. It was a 4th down that Max scored that touchdown, so they were going after it.
Yeah, such a cool moment. But Kirk was asked, I think it was the final question in the presser, of just, hey, that late touchdown, what's the genesis of it? So here's his answer to that.
They were strictly second team guys, and we're going to let them play. So, and Deacon's worked hard. We're curious to see how he's going to operate a little bit too. Not that we were, Eric Deacon, but give him a chance to throw a couple in there, and just want to let our guys play. And the guys up front too. We've talked about the front line, at least our backup line. Now we can put 5 guys out there and not expect a disaster. We've had that situation before too. So it was looked like they knew what they were doing. That's how they've been in practice. So it's good to see.
And we'll talk to Reagan about Air Deacon shirts in 2024. And again, I alluded to it, like Deacon getting more reps with the ones, or games reps in this case. Like, he could be your guy in 2024. So the more film study you get on him, the better. But just a super cool moment. Final thoughts just on the offense before we move ahead.
Not to dwell on Air Deacon, but I don't. This is not a Nike sponsored podcast. I know both Mitch and I have swooshes that did Kirk Ferentz there, but we have no skin in the game for Nike.
I like this color.
Yeah. It's dark blue, navy blue is kind of my color too. So I just stick with this when I need to. But I think that the offense eventually, they finally woke up and showed us what fans have kind of been waiting for all season. And I mean, that was a fun moment where I don't think it's quite going to make bad beats for Scott Van Pelt, but it was funny that that very last play, they finally covered both with points total and the spread.
My final thoughts on the offense, again, I think we touched on it, encouraging second half, encouraging throughout the game. Well, not throughout the game. Little concerning that it took him a while to get into things. Little concerning that he had 4 sacks. So those are 2 things that we'll have to look forward, especially with the biggest test of the season coming up next.
Absolutely. Well, we turn from the offense to the defense. Again, you don't see this defense give up a 65-plus yard play for a touchdown in the first quarter. First points, I believe Iowa had given up in the first quarter, at least first touchdown. But the defense really back in the second half, bouncing back. Joe Evans with the sack there. Just a steady, stalwart, strong presence on the D-line all season, and then some really cool moments here. This is Nick Jackson finally didn't have to drop back and pass coverage so much yesterday. He had some big moments, forced the fumble there, and then he and Llewellyn had a couple really nice plays. I almost had the fumble recovery on the play earlier, but then Nick and Jay, what a dynamic duo they are on this scramble. Nick ties him up, and then Jay comes in and punches that ball loose. Jeremiah Pittman, big play for him. We've heard so much about him going into the preseason in these first couple weeks, a huge moment for him. That was super, super cool to see him get the fumble recovery. This defense just really started to pick it up, and I think, Ethan Hurkett, I had to get one more shot of him in there, but
He has nice tackles.
great to see that. Dude hits hard. He practices hard. You heard Seth Wallace. Everybody needs to practice like Hurkett. So here's the defense on that slow start and why they weren't too worried about things once they got it straightened out.
I think we kind of came out a little flat, in that first quarter, and then finally got it going there in the third quarter.
I wouldn't say anything changed. I feel like we just kept doing our job. We got in a run, and I think we were trying to do too much, and then everybody figured out that maybe Coach Parker knows what he's doing. So if we all just do what we're supposed to do, we'll be all right. The game plan didn't change. We literally looked at each other and said, guys, let's just do our job. We didn't make any new calls. We didn't get any new personnel. It was player driven that something needed to happen, and we just focused on making sure our effort and literally doing our job was that focus for us.
I am happy the way our guys did respond. It was not the kind of start we had hoped for, certainly, but I think they fought through some things. And one thing about football, it's a full 60-minute game. Always has been, always will be. Sometimes more than that. And that's why you play the full 60. And
before we get too much into discussing one item that I just realized, that through 3 games, Iowa has not allowed a rushing touchdown. Is that right? All their touchdowns.
Three passing touchdowns.
Got to say that for them at least.
That's wild. I think this is not exactly what you want before Penn State, but Iowa really needed, we'd seen the fast starts, you alluded to this too. You get hit in the mouth, you're kind of staggered, you've got the delay, the weather delay that we'll talk about in a bit too, but nothing really was on schedule, everything was a little off kilter. That can, to a weaker team, not just physically but mentally, that can shake you get off course and you spiral the rest of the game. I think it was important to see Iowa deal with, and Cade talked about this too, for an earlier game, just dealing with adversity. I think he talked about it for Utah State. It's, you can frame it as concerning, and maybe, there's stuff to clean up. It's still early. We're still in September. But when you're not at your best and you can still pull off what they did yesterday, that's why I leave this, and, it's 3-0. It's not exactly, it's 3-0. That's perfect. It's maybe not the prettiest way, but you've seen the struggle and you've seen them persevere and get through and finally end super strong. That's encouraging to me in a big way.
Yeah, this is exactly what they even talked about after the fact that this could have been a trap game for them, and maybe even it looked like that in the first quarter and a half. But again, they rallied, and there's another team in our great state that did not rally after getting punched in the mouth by a MAC team and is now 1-2 on their record. And so the fact that I was able to rally and was able to come back and get kind of gut checked early and have Parker, not really light into the defense during the weather delay, as they told us. They found a way, because I think I said this to Mike, that I was like, gosh, if these guys don't get another touchdown before halftime, this crowd is gonna lose it. The first quarter and a half, their offense looked very unimaginative, looked very flat, and their defense was getting worked. They looked bad in the first quarter and a half. They were just getting toasted, it seems like, on every play. The quarterback sneaks, it's like, Kirk said it too. It's like we've never seen a quarterback sneak before. That quarterback was running all over him.
Just like a simple read option to the right.
Yeah,
they did it 3 times in a row and got 30 yards on it.
I don't know. There was discussion about whose fault it was that got beat on the touchdown pass, if that was Jamari's fault or Xavier's.
My gut was that it was just a hole in the zone. I know Jamari was, I don't know if Jamari was supposed to be in the flat and X was supposed to be out top, and they just found that gap. It was a great throw. That dude, so that was not the guy that started the last 7 games last year. I think he's got a little bit of play intermittently, but I think that's the first time, and they were switching some guys out too. I think that's the biggest chunk of time he's had playing. But dude was good. His stat sheet doesn't show, but again, first quarter and a half, he was the best quarterback on that field.
Yeah.
And sparked him in a big, big way.
But just a complete tale of 2 halves, where it's the first quarter and a half, Iowa was by far the inferior team in that ball game. In the second half, it's it was not even a contest. That's kind of what we expected out of it.
But again, that's weirdly encouraging, right?
Yeah.
Another encouraging.
It kind of is.
You've come out that flat and figure it out.
Another encouraging thing, and thanks to Hair Trigger in the comments that
Hair
brought it
Trigger's
up.
carrying the comments the last 2
When you lose Seth Benson and Jack Campbell, we talked about this, and you don't worry about the linebackers. Nick Jackson had 9 tackles and a sack. Jay Higgins had 9 tackles as well. And they're both leaders on this defense. So when you lose guys like that, or Jack's starting in the NFL right now, it's really a blessing to be a Hawkeye fan when you don't have to worry about, just when you lose those players to the NFL.
Nick Jackson's expectations were high, even though he kind of got lost in the shuffle of Cade and Eric, and people were excited about Seth, rightfully so. Seth had a great reverse that Mike got great shots of, and it was commotion and chaos in the corner at the end of it.
I almost got murdered on the sideline from.
I saw you have to get.
we had a few close calls down there, tucked in the corner of the end zone. But of course, this is a 3-phase game. We've talked about offense and defense. Special teams, Torrey had some great punts, and there was some great punt coverage. But that moment from Ontario Thompson, transfer from Iowa Western, pride of Dubuque Hempstead, just an all-time awesome moment. We talked about the joy that all the teammates had for when Max White scored. Such a cool moment for Ontario. Was very candid in post-game about how he got to Iowa. He said he really didn't take academics that seriously for a while and really needed to straighten up. And so it was a great moment for him to be able to find his road at Iowa Western. Really cool to hear from Kirk as well after the game about just how in the world they found him and got him to Iowa City to put him in a place for a really special moment on special teams.
But I've just been waiting for my name to be called because I knew that I can impact this team in many ways, and they ended up putting me on special teams. And my quickness and my size, I just knew I can get back there, and I knew I could make a play. And I knew the first one I missed, I was close, and I knew that I was going to get it the second time. I knew when the opportunity came back up, I knew I was going to make that play.
Start with Ontario with the punt block, just a guy who's really doing some good things behind the scene. I think he's got a really good future here. So to see him involved, and that's probably not the position you would have figured him, being opportunistic, and so that was great to see.
I think Kirk said they found him at a camp in Altoona. Like his old high school coach came up like, "Hey, you need to take a look at this." And again, like that's those camps and just keeping eyes peeled and having local coaches come and say, "Hey, take a look." Just an awesome moment for him. So, he was a guy that, again, kind of under the radar, one of those transfer recruits. Was like, boy, man, if he can get it together, like he'd be fun. And again, pointing to Mike's photo gallery online, you have awesome shots of that first one that he almost blocked to the
Got
point
it pulled
where
up. I was going to bring it up real quick.
I don't know how he didn't block. We're trying to figure out how does he not block this?
Okay.
He's hugging the man. How does he not block this?
Here's the first one. And
awesome
they're a little, And then second one, and then you can see the ball actually right here. Somehow must have went on the left side. This is the first one he didn't block.
You think about weapons on special teams kind of being like the outside guys coming in. It's rarely one of the interior dudes. Clearly, Ontario he's a weapon on the interior on special teams.
I'm very like, I'm no LeVar Woods. I'm not very well versed when it comes to like special teams and scouting it and figuring it out. But it's like, boy, the punt game, defense, return game that they had yesterday. I would love to see something like that every game where it's like every single punt. They were freaking going after it. Like they were going pump block every single time. And they weren't sacrificing anything for it because Cooper had some really nice returns. So it's like, that is like the perfect punt return scenario when you've got guys that are like, just millimeters away from a punt block almost every single time. And Cooper's still getting, 10 to 20 yards on the return.
We joke about punting as winning as a fan base. But literally the punt game on both sides of the entire thing, they downed it inside the 5 twice. Really set them up poorly on those 2 drives where they downed it inside. But yeah, and like you said, the punt block just makes you think too that the punter probably got something in his head after that first one. After that second block, you can tell the punts weren't going as far. So
yeah, T.J. Hall and Devin Hilson were fantastic on downfield coverage, down on those punts. Again, T.J. Hall, reserve corner who showed out a little bit in that Kids Day scrimmage as well.
The long snapper, Luke Elkin, had a punt that was down at the 1 yard line. I mean, again, the guy who snaps it that's a tough play to make when you're the long snapper.
I got to shout out Devin Hilson again, the first D1 recruit from Des Moines North. He came in as a running back. He was an awesome running back at North. Now he's a DB and is certainly making an impact. So awesome to see offense, defense, special teams. There is, of course, a dark cloud, not unlike the ones we saw over. I'm stealing John Steppe's lead. That's what he wrote a story like that. I was like, I thought I was creative. I just read something last night. The tough news is that Luke Lachey is out. We don't know how long. We know that Kirk has said that play right there is a significant injury. We're going to find out.
Wow, I haven't seen
probably
this video. It
It's
does not look good.
It sucks, man. Again, we talked last week about why are you smiling? Is it because it's Iowa State? No, I just like to smile. I'm a happy person. Just an awesome kid. Forget about, again, the stats and his impact on the offense. Just an awesome young man who carries himself so well. And
he's a captain for a reason.
He's a captain for a reason, and it's tough when a guy like that takes the hit. And both Kirk and Cade borderline kind of emotional talking about it, just what that impact is going to mean.
Unfortunately, I hate to lose Luke to an injury, and it's fairly significant. So we'll know more about that in a couple days. They're assessing that, but that's the one downside right there.
When one of your brothers goes down like that, it's horrible to see, and we're all going to be praying for him, and it's just tough seeing your boy do that, honestly.
I did have a friend who's a doctor that pointed out, because my first thought was like something, I don't even want to speculate. He said that there's probably not a break, because it would be to let him kind of be on his own on crutches with like a fresh break. Probably wouldn't be the protocol. So he thinks maybe it's something that's torn. I mean, the ankle just got rolled up, and that's the danger of football, is that you're going to be rolling around and getting banged up. But again, we'll learn a little bit more about Luke and just how long that loss will be. But of course, this is tight end U. We're going to find out just how deep it goes. Of course, Eric All, the transfer from Michigan, had the 2-point conversion catch there, had another catch later in the game. He's, it's nice when your co-starter at tight end is another all Big Ten performer, so he had a couple big ones. But we've heard so much in the preseason about Steven Stylianos and Addison Ostrenga, who I think was supposed to, there's Stylianos' first career catch earlier in the game. Addison was probably a guy that had that route in the end zone that Cade missed at Iowa State. But another catch from Steve there, and then Addison had a couple of grabs as well. So they had targets, they had some good reps, and we're going to see their roles, obviously out of necessity, evolve a little bit now. I wonder if, again, Hayden Large, who was a tight end at Dort, who's been playing fullback, I'm waiting for him to get more involved. I don't want to see Hayden Large go off. I wonder if he kind of becomes your de facto fourth tight end now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna learn a lot about tight end U's depth and what they can do, because I'm guessing we're not going to see Luke for a little while.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if we see him again this year. I mean, again, I don't want to speculate or assume, but that, for me personally would surprise me. I mean, it is like, just again, kind of fortuitously in the Eye on the Hawks show that we talked about this last week with John Stepien here. Yeah, I asked him about the deepest part of Iowa's lineup, and he did say that, yeah, that tight end room is like, we haven't had a chance to really see. We associate Stylianos and Ostrenga with like, oh, they're backups, they're second string guys, but it's like, dude, they would be like starting for sure on 90% of the teams in the country. I bet, like, those are legit, incredibly talented tight ends. And Steven Stylianos has some Division I talent. He's a senior. He played at Lafayette before.
Yeah.
So it's like he's got a lot of experience out there, and so those guys are going to fill in. And I mean, the change will certainly be noticeable without Lachey out there. Lachey is like a lock to be an NFL draft pick.
He's your leading receiver, everything.
And so he, he's going to be missed, but like they'll fill in nicely and they'll do a good job. I didn't know how this works again. So you guys who have followed the Hawkeyes a lot longer than me will have to clear this up. How does it work with captain stuff? Like, will Lachey still just be the captain all 4 games, or like if he's replaced?
I think it depends on if he's. I think they've had injured captains before. So I guess
doesn't come to memory, so I'm not entirely sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's still the captain.
If he's able to be around the team, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a captain, or being the nice guy that he is. I don't know if he'd like back out and like nominate somebody. I don't know how it would work.
Right. Like, I didn't know. I mean, I don't know what his recovery or what he's going to have to do. Like, will he still travel with the team to all their games? Like, will he be at Penn State and all that stuff?
I don't know. I would think, just being who he is, that he would travel. I'm pretty sure Ricky Stanzi, after he did his lower leg, I mean, he was at Ohio State the next week.
Mm-hmm.
Again, but I'm referencing something from 14 years ago. I don't know how things change. Again, one of the storylines that kind of got swallowed up, which happens when you score 40 points and have so many cool moments, is that there was a weather delay. Nothing compared to Nevada, which everybody was claiming or exclaiming that they were just glad it wasn't anything like that delay in 2022. But they were off the field for half an hour. There was lightning just within that 8-mile radius. They told Kinnick to evacuate. Nobody really did. They just stayed in the stands. And student section was playing like rows deep, rock, paper, scissors. Some state troopers got involved too, also playing. It was a really, really cool moment. I didn't go into the room. I just hung out because it was as nice weather as it had been all day. I was like, finally, it's a little cool out here. But apparently there was a very terrifying moment in the Iowa locker room, at least according to Jay Higgins during that delay.
You're probably not going to believe me, but he was actually pretty calm. I was expecting, I've been here for a while, so I was expecting a little different Coach Parker, but I don't know. He's been laid back this year.
That's scary.
It is, because you know it's coming. You know it's coming. You don't want to be the guy that gives up the play that's coming.
So Jay was talking about Phil Parker didn't have like any big blow-ups or anything during the time in the locker room. Again, I was struggling defensively at that point, and then said like all season, like he's kind of been. And I've noticed him on the sidelines. I had a couple of ISO shots where he was just kind of like pensive, just kind of taking it in. You're like, oh, you're like what is boiling inside Phil Parker?
It's funny because during the kids' day, I heard some colorful language coming from him during the scrimmage.
If you are near that sideline. Phil expresses himself. Wouldn't change anything because whatever he's doing is working. But yeah, just a fun moment there. The other thing that came up, and there were a few questions. Again, there were so many things to talk about after yesterday. Good things that the delay kind of got forgotten about in a lot of ways. Mason Richmond was also asked about how they spent the time. They didn't have nearly as much time as against Nevada, where they're doing their taxes and playing cards and just filling the time however they can. But he had an interesting observation, Mason Richmond did, about what they did during their break and what they maybe saw from Western afterwards.
In the lightning delay, I mean, what did you say or what could you do at that point?
We said just eat and drink water. And honestly, like just because you saw on their side, they had cramps all over the place. So I'm like sitting there like, these guys didn't eat.
What did you eat?
I don't know. Maybe me and Dunk like split a sandwich or something like that. So, yeah, I know. Well, you don't want to overeat because sometimes you go out there and you're like, gosh, I can't do anything right now. So.
The great irony here is that what was the word on the bumper plate?
Western Michigan had "eat" on their bumper plate. Yeah,
and that's what they should have been doing.
That's their like slogan. I was talking to you on Thursday or Wednesday, and all their tweets say like "eat," and they have like they posted a photo of one of their players in a cornfield, and then last week they did it with a bunch of oranges. So a little interesting.
I dig it. I'm into this team slogan.
It used to be Row, obviously, when Fleck was there, and I was covering them. They still have the Ghost Bronco logo, which is a big switch there, but. Eat and drink if you're ever in a weather delay, and that way you won't cramp up and you can hang 40 on Western Michigan. Again, it felt for a little bit there in the first quarter that maybe, and Kirk pointed this out on Tuesday, that media was already talking about, it's 2 weeks until Penn State now. And there was maybe some overlooking of Western Michigan. Of course, we have fully established Kirk Ferentz does not overlook Western Michigan. He's finally 500 against them. They've hung 100 points on them in those last two games. But players after the game kind of acknowledged as much, that this could very easily have gone down a little more if there wasn't a proper response, and that slow start could have really snowballed. But it sounds like they were well aware and handled themselves accordingly.
Lightning delay. What did you say or what could you do
in the first couple of weeks? These kind of games that if you go out there and sleepwalk, honestly, you're not going to be able to handle it. So I was really proud of our guys and the way that we responded, to that first touchdown they had. But defense stepped up, offense, special teams, all around the board. It was a great game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of in a way this was a trap game, because everyone is pretty aware of, the Big Ten. The Big Ten games are the most important. We got to win those if we want to have any kind of success.
And that takes us into Penn State week. No more overlooking. The week is here. Again, that game is going to be on CBS 2. What a night game. It's going to be maybe one of the premier games in the country next year. We don't have the, let me refresh, still waiting for the AP Top 25 to come out. The new one, it is out. Iowa has jumped to, this is live breaking.
That's literally in the last 2 seconds because I just checked.
They're 24th. They've gone up one.
The coaches poll 22nd. They jumped 2 spots.
Where'd Penn State go to?
Penn State is
7.
now.
And the coaches poll.
Still 7th after that win. So Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, Texas number 3, Florida State 4. Yeah, a lot of unchanged. Oregon jumps 3 to 10. where's Colorado? Colorado drops one after losing or beating Jay Norvell's squad there at Colorado State, former Iowa player. So Iowa will head to Happy Valley, 24th in the country, 3-0, and lots to dissect there, of course, throughout the week. But we should look back. I was so excited to share my good week of Big Ten West picks, and now I need to eat some crow for taking some big swings, some big swings this past Saturday. Ooh, that's a lot of red.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm the big winner for this week on the pick'em. I went 6-1. Only game I missed was the Northern Illinois game, which I told Mitch before we started recording. I only picked them because I was like, oh, I picked all the winners. I can't do that. So then I pivoted.
Picked all the losers.
Yeah, Mitch went 2-5, brings his record to 9-11. Owen went 4-3, and we're tied overall for the season, 12-8.
That 0-6 start is going to haunt me for the rest of the season. Illinois gave a fight against Penn State a little bit. We'll get into that a little more coming up Tuesday, Wednesday once we've talked to the guys about everything. But Wisconsin, boy, that was a wild one.
I mean,
a lot of these games, we're in doubt for a while until there were some fourth quarter covers. Penn State and Wisconsin, Georgia Southern.
They win that game pretty handily.
That's infuriating for me just as a picker who didn't even put any money on that game. I'm like, you had a 14-7 lead in the third quarter, and you still can't even cover that.
I'm not betting on these things either. This is just pride. Minnesota, that was tough. Cade McNamara, I know I talked to him a lot in the preseason. He had another rough day in terms of completion percentage, and again, Drake May is just going to do his thing with UNC's offense. Really impressive against what I still consider to be a pretty stout Minnesota defense. Darius Taylor had a big day on the ground for the Gophers. Boy, I thought Northwestern could hang a little bit more with Duke.
Nerd Bowl.
Duke looking like the real deal despite Mike's attack against the academic community. Nebraska at home again against Rocky Lombardi in Northern Illinois. Boy, Purdue, I don't know what to think.
Did you guys see Nebraska didn't play Jeff Sims yesterday? I don't know if you mentioned that. He didn't play a snap. I don't remember who. I was looking.
Did Purdy play, or was it the?
It wasn't Purdy. It was the other one.
The other guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am like, I kind of, I don't know. Even though Nebraska, covered and won that game comfortably, I'm like, I really don't know if these guys are actually going to be, any
You
good
have it out
here.
against the Huskies for some undocumented reason. You just don't like
I really thought that they were going to,
What did DeKalb ever do to you?
No, I really thought that Nebraska would be potentially back this season, and maybe they'll turn it around once the Big Ten play starts. But I've really been unimpressed with what I've seen in Nebraska under Matt Rule so far.
Yeah, we'll see. And again, Purdue had some, not high hopes, but I thought Card would get in there and do some good things. But yeah, 1-2, heading to hosting Wisconsin on Friday night. That's one of the Big Ten West matchups we'll pick coming up on Wednesday.
Do you guys? I mean, would you say it's been a disappointing non-conference season for the Big Ten? Like, I don't know where this conference
overall
will rank and
as the conference.
Yeah, I mean, because you got a lot of teams. Minnesota lost yesterday.
You still Ohio State. It looks like they've figured some stuff out. Michigan's moseyed right along.
It seems like the games they've lost, they were underdogs in, and I think the SEC having a poor non-conference schedule results so far really has
might
taken
be the best conference in the country. Right
yeah,
now.
I mean this time of the season every year, it seems like the Big Ten is losing the games against the MAC and non-conference games, but it's the SEC this year that is not having a great year. So I think that kind of taken the heat off of the other conferences.
Sure. Michigan State got worked yesterday by Washington.
Washington's really good.
Gary Trigger says Altmaier had 4 INTs and a fumble. We didn't get to watch that game. We were at Kinnick at the time, but I did record it. Hopefully I can see what they got. But that's not protecting the football.
Not great. Illinois hosts Florida Atlantic. They're still out of the non-con. Yeah, Altmaier, 7 picks now in his first season in Champaign. Rutgers heads to Michigan. Maryland goes to Michigan State. Nebraska will host Louisiana Tech, another non-con there. Ohio State, Notre Dame, that's a big one. That's, Sam Hartman's got that Irish offense humming. 1,000 yards passing, 13 touchdowns already. He is something.
It isn't Big Ten, but I'm really excited to watch Oregon and Colorado. I don't know if you guys stayed up for that Colorado State game. We had some comments It was a wild game. I kept falling asleep, and I woke up to watch the double overtime game because I think I fell asleep when they were down like by 2 scores, and then I woke up. It was double overtime. Like what in the Sam Hill? But
You meant to say Hill, and you said, oh.
yeah, Sam Hill.
Made it more sweary. I don't know why you had to do that.
Oh, boy. And, of course, you got Iowa at Penn State. What a game that's going to be. Tickets as low as $209 there at University Park Beaver Stadium. Akron goes to Indiana, so you got a few Big Ten teams still in the non-con, and then Minnesota, another Big Ten West matchup, going to Northwestern. We'll see if the Gophers can bounce back from their first loss this season. Boy, we're starting to get into the thick of it now. This is where the fun begins, to quote Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker. What a resurgence The Chosen One is having, thanks to Ahsoka, streaming on Disney Plus. Not an ad, but a lot of fun there. Mike's a big fan. Mike's a big fan of all this stuff.
Love Star Wars.
It's great. I love it. I just didn't watch any more of the cartoons. I should have. Anyways, we'll focus more on football and less on Hayden Christensen's acting career. Watch Shattered Glass as well. On Tuesday and Wednesday,